And we're live, y'all. Hey, listen, I know I sound excited. I know everybody else is like, whoa, the nerves. Okay. That's because you have to keep going. You got to keep pushing. And we're going live everywhere right now. We are actually live, Angela, on Facebook, um, YouTube, and a couple places on Facebook. So here we are, election limbo. That's about all I can call it.
Yeah.
I know you said you had a rough night.
I did. I did not take it well. And I was like, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna freak out. And I was, so I
Which you
say,
did.
but I did. And I was physically ill last night and I just
Oh,
got sick to my stomach. I broke out in
oh,
hives and
all that.
I had nightmares all night where I was just screaming. I just would wake up and in my dreams I was just screaming. So that's how I took the early returns. And I knew we would probably not know, right? I guess
Mm-hmm.
what shocked me. Hang on, I'm gonna just there we
Get the
go.
shares
I
going.
just
Okay.
hitting the share there. But yeah, I just was thinking. Literally, I was thinking, oh, I'm gonna before I go to bed. I looked at about 1 o'clock. Said, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure it's going to be looking really strongly for Biden. And he's ahead in the electoral college. But just some of these, it's and
Yeah.
I saw a real interesting commentary, which is like, everybody said don't believe the polls, and I'm like, I'm not going to believe the polls, but I did believe the polls, right? And so
Mm.
it's like, so I set myself up to be shocked. I mean, it's not over, it ain't over. There's
Right.
actually
Right.
some
Right.
really good and interesting things that have happened, particularly here in Georgia, that
Mm-hmm.
to be happy about. But yeah, man, I did not handle it well. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I was thinking I was going to
Right.
be ill, and I did. I broke out in hives on my
Well, you know what?
balcony.
I am so excited we didn't get a verdict or didn't get a results. It's not final yet. I'm so
Mm-hmm.
excited because I didn't want to go to bed with that. I didn't want to wake up with that.
Yeah.
I really want this to happen. I want them to take their time.
Yes.
There's so many interesting things when we're hearing about how many ballots are still out and all the counting that's now going to be considered. It makes you wonder, like, why isn't this the process anyway? Why don't we have an election day and then a week
Mm-hmm.
later we announce? Why is there always a
Yeah.
sense of urgency? I knew going in that because of the my sources that I choose to watch or put in my head and put in my ear.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was interesting the way they were handling it. In fact, NPR, which you and I both
Yep.
consume of,
Yeah.
said they were in their feelings yesterday about Biden because apparently they had not had an interview with him since he had the nomination because he has been going straight to the people and bypassing a lot
Mm-hmm.
of these sources. But they just hearing them say that they would not, as a network or as an outlet, have a decision desk. So I started listening for that
Yep.
language. And I
Yep.
really and as they said it, I noticed all the other networks are like that. Nobody wants to call this. Nobody wants
Yep.
to make the decision. Everybody wants to say reported by,
Right.
and everybody said they wait for the AP. But before we even get into all of that, because we dropped this link in a number of inboxes, and we've got a number of people that are going to be coming on with us. And Angela has a hard stop at 2:40, and already Trisha Bailey is saying hello, so shout out to her.
Hi.
And also Regina on the West Coast, shout out to her, and everybody else that's watching. I see the likes and the views already going up. If you are in any of the watch parties, you want to try to go over to the originally, you hang out in the watch party. But if you want your comments on the screen, which we can do, you need to try to get to the original, which is on my personal Facebook page, Leading Women page, Drybus page, Angela's page, and then also over on YouTube. I don't know that the YouTube comments will come over, so we'll be looking for those. And also, I will start as soon as I bring our guests on. I'll start a watch party as well. So when you see my head down, I'm only working on a number of any of these devices. And I hope that everybody is taking lots to get into. First of all, let me tell you, I'm trying to be more let me come a little bit to the light before I bring on the better okay. You can catch her Wednesday evenings, and that is Dr. Shatachi Egru. And she is helping us all live stream best. And she has a show that airs Wednesday evenings that's called Media Scope. Do not miss Media Scope. Everything
Yep.
tech, news and pop culture, making sense of all the everything else that we do in our lives when we are afraid with this election. And if you want to escape and you want to know where everybody is escaping, make sure you check out Tati, along with Curtis Brooks, and both of them. They have another show called Be More. Tati has Be More, but then we're live. That's a show that they have. And as you notice, I have brought my light closer. I don't have the shadows going on in the back. I got the audio going because people are like, Drive Bus, you go live anytime, anywhere. Yes, I will. But I'm trying to be more. Hey, Tati.
Hey, how are you? Thank you for that wonderful Queen Elizabeth worthy introduction.
That's it.
And we have to. Now, you are in Florida.
Yes.
What's going on down there? How is the mode, the tone, and everything there?
So what you have to understand is I live in South Florida. I live in Fort Lauderdale, Miami area, which is very different from the rest of Florida. Once you go north of Orlando, that's basically the deep South. So the way they vote is very, quote, red, whereas Palm Beach, Miami-Dade, and Broward counties tend to be more Democratic. They tend to lean more Democratic, although in Miami-Dade, you have a very large Cuban population, which tends to be very conservative and very heavily Republican. And sometimes you're like, Miami-Dade, I don't know about you, because you don't know which way it's going to go, because is that Cuban vote really going to, and not Cuban mostly, but a very large Latinx population. So do they also align with that? So it's interesting because where I am is not a good measure of what the rest of Florida is like. So whereas you looked at the map of Florida and Palm Beach, Miami-Dade, and Broward were blue.
So you guys kind of break up, like literally like straight down, stair stepping as you travel south through Florida. You break up that way. It's different with us, Angela and I, in Georgia. We're kind of like a bullseye.
Yeah.
Right.
We're
the
like
Atlanta metro area, right?
Right.
And then of course all around us, like we can't go north, south, east, or west. We're gonna run into it. So we have to like just stay right where we are. And that's what
So that's why we never go anywhere. That's why we never go anywhere.
That's exactly why we never go anywhere. But it's interesting when you're watching people outside of our state really break down what this is. And just for the record, for the numbers, let me tell you, Black women were 99, still not 99. I think we're right about 91 as far as on going with Biden. And I think we lost a good 8% that went with Trump, but that's okay because it is everybody's personal vote, and we're going to try to be as bipartisan. But this is after the.
I'm with you, Tachi. I'm like, are we? We are.
I'm like, finish.
I'm like, we are. I'm like, are
I'm sorry.
We invited. We sent the link literally to those who were active in the process. So it just depends on. I don't know who's going to accept. We're on until 3:00 as people pop in and out, and everybody had all kind of things to do. If you are watching and you would like to come on, just inbox me. I'll open my inbox here and I will drop the link for you to come on live with us. And everybody has all kind of duties on there. Okay. All right. So how soon do you guys want to know? How do you want to know? This is one of those things like, how soon do you want to know? And how do you want to know?
So you're talking about, Yalanda, you're talking about like election results.
How do you want to know who's president? How do you want that news delivered to you?
God.
And who do you trust to deliver it though?
I want Barack Obama to come to my door and knock and say, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are now taking care of you. You are safe.
Let me ask, have you guys seen any activity from Kamala?
No, I haven't seen any. That doesn't mean it's not happening, but I haven't seen active. And to be honest, if you think about it in the past, was there really a lot of activity from vice presidents? Yeah. Mostly
we saw Pence had to step in and save Trump last night because
right. But if we were dealing with a normal human being, then he wouldn't have had to step in to save anybody, right? That's the only thing we heard from him. But in past, I don't really recall vice presidents being very vocal or very anything until you see them come out on election night and when they accept, when the president wins. Whoever's going to be. So that's when you really start seeing them and hearing from them. But no, things have been, Kamala has been laying pretty low, I think, for the most part, but not anything any lower than any other past vice president elects, nominees have.
Well, let me ask you, Tachi, on the HBCU side, how are you guys feeling?
Okay, so number one, there's a couple of things. I'm intimately tied because number one, I'm a Delta. Kamala's an AKA, but I'm a Delta. And there's been a very concerted effort by the D9, which is the Divine Nine fraternities and sororities, to try and support another D9 member. So there has been a lot of activity. In fact, I'm a member of a few Facebook groups that are like, Kamala for, that type.
All the different for Kamala. I saw the shirts and the hashtags and so forth. Right.
Correct. Strolling to the polls, D9 for Kamala. So there's a very big push by many D9 members to support one of our own, meaning somebody who is running that's a member of a Divine Nine organization. I am also a Howard University alum, a double Howard University alum, and Kamala is a Howard University alum. So there's a big push by Howard University alumni associations, Howard University in general, to support the candidate because she is, one of our own. She is a Howard Bison. So in terms of that, you see a lot of movement, a lot of support in that sense. And, they've really made a big deal. Kamala especially has made a big deal. She did this whole town hall thing with the presidents of the Divine Nine in general. She's done several things to try and pull people in. I think the thing I have to say is, well, on all counts, they know their base. Well, the Republican side and the Democratic side, they know who their base is, and they are playing to their base and doing a good job of playing to their base. Whether we agree with it or not, we can say that it has been effective. So on the HBCU tip, because she went to an HBCU, there is a very big thing with supporting your own and making sure that HBCU, because there may be, and I don't know that this is the case, but there could be a thought in the head of some HBCU administration that when you have somebody in office that went to an HBCU and enjoyed their experience at an HBCU, they will be more friendly in terms of things like funding towards HBCUs, pipelines to different things in the government and in industry, and funding those types of things, grants available. So I think that could also be something in the back of the minds of HBCU administrations and presidents, though I can't speak for them.
That's going to be interesting to see. I just noticed, that her camp was just a little quiet, and I, like you said, I think knowing that they needed to kind of take a back seat because Biden ultimately gets to make the decision as to how far they go in pushing this thing, and hope. I'm hoping they do like George Bush, stay in it. I think. And this is the thing that I have always disagreed with, the fact that some news anchor or somebody would make the call on this, that we don't have a governing body to say who our elected officials are. Now, let's talk a little bit on the local level. I know one of the things here in Georgia, we had an opportunity to flip two of our representatives, long term, one retired and one we were trying to vote out. And it looks like those numbers, just like with the presidency, they're very tough to read. They're still trying to call in all the votes. And it looked like one is already going into a runoff. And this is kind of a history kind of for us. And this is another side to this. Angela and I have been talking about how much we need to deep dive into our generation and how we are being represented. Because here, when you have maybe two generations looking for the baton to be passed to them, we want to make sure that we have done our due diligence and participating in this, as well as being able to receive that baton. So I'm excited to see a number of the other races. Do you think when there is a presidential race that some of the local stuff gets lost?
Absolutely. I think it always gets lost because,
Mm-hmm.
we keep putting these messages out there that the presidential election is not the only election that matters, that you need to pay attention to your local and state elections as well, because more than the presidential election, those are going to have a direct impact on your
Mm-hmm.
daily lives. More than that. So
Right.
I think that it always gets lost because all you have to do is look at the numbers of voter turnout when it comes to midterm elections, when it comes to elections that are outside of a regular election cycle. How many people actually go and vote? So I
Mm-hmm.
think we've not done a good job. Well, first of all, they've taken civics out of schools. Remember,
Yeah.
it was before my time that they
Mm-hmm.
had civics in
Mm-hmm.
schools, but remember back in the day they did
Mm-hmm.
used to have civics as part of
Right.
government or whatever in schools, and they
Mm-hmm.
took that out. So civics really did a good job in teaching you what your civics and responsibility is, what to pay attention to, and all of those things. When you don't have that as part of the curriculum, and then parents may not be teaching it because they just don't know, there's no incentive for me to participate in anything but the
Mm-hmm.
presidential election, because and I will say I was kind of guilty of this in a way because I moved to Florida in '05. And so, you really don't feel part of the local
Mm-hmm.
government structure. Like, whatever, I came here to get a job for my job. And so I wasn't thinking about local politics. So the first election that I voted in Florida was in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Barack Obama and John McCain. That was the first one I voted to. But there had been other elections before, but because I was so focused on, I had just moved here. I don't know who these local people were.
Mm-hmm.
In my head, I don't care either. So, but that's not a good thing, because I think if you're going to live in an area, that doesn't mean you have to be all about the local politics, because I'm
Mm-hmm.
not, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest. But you do need to pay attention to what's going on, because then you can't complain when they pass this question on the ballot. You're like, when the hell did they pass that? It was on the last ballot, and you didn't
Right.
vote.
Right.
So
When there are like 5 different tax levels on a loaf of bread. You looking at
Mm-hmm.
exactly,
you have the loaf of bread, and then you like, wait, there's this tax, there's that tax, and like,
Yep.
that one penny that you see on the ballot all the time, it does add up, y'all. And that
and
was
it's
one of the things.
interesting.
I did a
Sorry.
campaign. My campaign was, vote for your neighborhood. If your neighbor, you don't know, if you don't recognize names on the ballot, if your neighbors are not on the
Mm-hmm.
ballot, then you don't live next to lawmakers. And just trying to get people to understand that a lawmaker is literally your neighbor, based
Mhm.
on how our ballots are made up. And I consistently see, every time I go and vote, I consistently see somebody where they're asking questions about issues that are not on the ballot. And they're like, well, that's not where you live. It's on the news and it's in the headlines, but that's across town.
Exactly.
And they're like, wait, I need to vote. And like one lady, the lady next to me, she was like, what is this? And I'm like, girl, we live outside Atlanta. Okay. she was like
Wow.
just totally confused. And so they had to pull her off the machine, give her a sample ballot. It's like, listen, hey, this is where you live. Yes, you've got the president stuff, but then here's some people running for your school board and all these other things. I mean, she was like, whoa, and not to shade or shame anything. I mean, a number of people, like you said, first time voting, they relocated. And oftentimes, I know one of the things in my blogging, because I used to have to blog about moving to Atlanta. Here's what happens if you move or relocate to Atlanta. You need to know what these different issues are, because if you move to the east side of town or the north side of town or the west side of town, particularly as it related to educating kids, because I was a mommy blogger. And so if you move to the east side of town, the extracurricular activity out there is banned. Kids are ushered into music. Another side of town, they're ushered into the military. My kid went military, all of those things, these different agendas, because you said something earlier, Tati, the funding, right?
Mhm.
It depends on where the funding is going, and those are where the opportunities are. And that's how the opportunities break down. And I don't know that people really think about that enough, is that it really breaks down on the ballot. Angela, what are what are some of the other issues? What were the things that were really at issue? Because I know we're looking at the red and the blue states and we're thinking, it's Biden and Trump, it's racism and this economy and taxes and all that. But what do you guys think really? Because this thing is really coming down to the wire. The numbers, we're looking at 49%, 50%, 47%. What do you think is really at issue on this ballot? Go ahead.
It's interesting because here where I live in Cobb County, Georgia. So I live just outside the city line. And I've been living in this county now for 20 years. I can't even believe I've been in Atlanta that long. But and I've watched this, I'm like, right, like I say, I can walk across a bridge and I'm in the city of Atlanta, right? So I'm that close. And so I've watched first my area and then the county become more and more Democrat. So basically this election, we flipped the entire county blue. This was a county that went for Hillary for the first time had gone, voted for gone Democratic for president in 2016. So I know Biden has won Cobb because we now have a Cobb County commissioner. We have the first Black female county commissioner.
Wow.
Here in Cobb County. We have flipped our district attorney. We had a long-term sheriff, and there were all kinds of difficulties and problems at our local county jail. So you see these sorts of things, and it's what you're talking about, Tachi. You don't necessarily pay attention to them, right? And particularly if you're not really involved in prison reform or know somebody in jail, right? And it's like you're not thinking about what's going on at the county jail. But we had an unusual number of prisoners in custody die in our county jail. Wow. And this has been an ongoing thing. And this is, again, where thanks to media, we've had ongoing reporting about these weird deaths in the county jail, right? Well, what does a person like me do about weird deaths in the county jail? Well, here in Cobb County, the sheriff is in charge of the jail. And so there had to be an educational piece first, right? I just think about how much you're talking about civics. We got to educate people to say, do you want to see changes at the jail? You got to get rid of this old sheriff that we've had forever who is, as a crony, right? Mm-hmm. And so we've got a new sheriff. So we flipped just everything on our county level has now flipped Democrat. And so there have been issues in our county now that we'll be able to address. And that's the trail, right? That's the wave, that has come behind because people went out to vote for Biden. Do they know who Lisa Cupid is, who is now our new our Cobb County commissioner? I don't know. She's a very highly qualified woman, but we're going to get to see a Black woman in charge of our county. And so, I think that it's like I say, it's not just the president, it's the Senate. Like for us here, we're thinking about the Senate. We flipped the Senate. We control the Senate. Democrats. I say we, like I run the Democrats. But it's like, but I'm Team Democrat. There's all sorts of things. And then here in Georgia too is our state legislature, because if the Supreme Court has gone rogue and has gone Handmaid's Tale, it's going to be our state legislatures where we're going to see protections. And this is back to the thing that Yolanda's been talking about for years. If you're not paying attention to who is in your state representative, right? Can you even name who that is? Thankfully, both of mine are Democrat and they won, right? Then who are you? This is the bottom line of where our personal rights are. So I'm hoping, and I'm talking too long, I need to turn it back to the expert. I'm hoping that this is making people aware of how these systems work, including elections, right? How the election processes work, because now we're being forced to pay attention. So now I will shut up because Dr. Tachi, we've got you here as an expert. But so if you want to follow up on that, on my rant.
If you were looking for an expert, I regret to inform you, you have recruited the wrong person.
And let me kick it back to you as a media expert, right?
Okay.
Is to say, because what I'm thinking, we're talking about the failure of civics, right? Yeah. And the loss of that. What role do you think the media, and again, this was really just an opinion, what role can the media play in that education piece, right? In the in informing people about more than just the talking points of politicians, but in educating on the process?
That's interesting. So I think when we're looking at media sources and media outlets, it's going to have to come from the back end. And I say this because media runs because of advertising. Mm-hmm. That's it. Nobody is going to put, you may be able to get away with a special once in a while that is civic minded and that type of thing around elections, but on a normal basis, don't bet on it. You're going to lose ratings, and people don't want to advertise around that. So it's an unfortunate fact that because we have not changed the way we do advertising and raise money in media since the 1800s, since the days of yellow journalism, it's still contingent upon advertising. So we haven't really found another more effective way. So since that is still the way we do things, you're kind of beholden to ratings / advertisers. And so what's going to happen is you, in addition to those few specials you do every once in a while, you need to have a pipeline that is like an educational program for schools, for colleges, team up with colleges, team up with the young Dems or the college Dems and the college Republicans, and have conversations about these things, have a plan with these things. And I think that should be across the board, across all types of media, not just for the ones like the Washington Post and the New York Times, et cetera, and the, the stations, but that also should be a local charge to do that. So on air, I don't think we're going to see a lot more than what we've been seeing, but behind the scenes, we could see much more.
Yeah. You know what? Let's talk about on air. When we coming into this, everybody's saying that they won't have a decision desk. They don't want to be the decision maker. Are we looking at media with what they did with Hillary? Because there's been a lot of apology between Trump and Hillary, them not showing Hillary enough and literally creating this monster in Trump. Are we really looking at, as I peek around this check the television, are we really looking at media trying to redeem themselves? Because they are walking the plank on this one, and there's a lot of censorship, and I mean the changes and the labels and the warnings. You can't even like post election anything without the warnings. Is media correcting themselves in this election?
That's an excellent assessment / question. I think that the media, there has been an onslaught and a denigration of the media by the current administration. There has been no protection of media, because really media is the only way that we have to speak truth to power. That doesn't mean it always works. That doesn't mean it's always truth. And it doesn't always mean it's always to power, but it is one way that we have to speak truth to power. And because we don't have the protection from this administration to do those types of things, and we've seen it from throwing people out of the White House press corps, et cetera, to the fact of what he did with TikTok, that is totally, and even though TikTok is not press, that's still a way that it's citizen journalism.
It's a channel, yeah, it's a channel.
And it's citizen journalism. There are an awful lot of journalists who do use it. And that is like a silencing of their voices. So we've seen it, in his response to TikTok with now we're going to make sure that it's closed. That was because he got his little feelings hurt. Anybody can say, it's because of, China and concerns with China. Partially. Mostly he was embarrassed and his feelings got hurt. And that's where that came from. And so when we're looking at that in media as a whole, I think there's this, they're walking on a frozen pond and they're not quite sure if it's all the way frozen. And if they step in the wrong spot, they're going to fall through. So I think there's this trepidation, this quiet trepidation when it comes to that, because if you're on his wrong side, he will make everything a living hell, and it will be very difficult for you to get anything done in the work of media. So I think there's an awareness of that. That doesn't mean they're kowtowing, but I think there's an awareness of that, which is why they're like, okay, let's not sensationalize things, because I think for a long time, everybody thought, well, he said this, he said that, and they're always, people are like, well, why are you giving him more shine? So I think there is an awareness of that, of not trying to overexpose the things he does, and also trying to make sure that they can get on with the business of media and not have a whole government inquiry into what they're doing because they said something wrong.
Right. Have you guys noticed that almost the entire White House press corps has changed? It used to be everybody sent the cream of the crop, and now it's like, who are you? It's like, who are these people that are now covering the president, and if and why anybody is still covering the president? Because that used to be something I watched religiously. I knew who was on the first row, who was on the last row, who was moving up and down. I know who all moved up during the Obama brought everybody out of the shadows, like, hey, you guys up front, y'all go to the back, and the back people come up. But now it's like you look at it, you're like, who is it? Especially in the spread, we call it now the spreader garden because it's no longer the rose. It's no longer the rose garden.
The super spreader garden.
Spreader garden. And you look at people who are covering this president, and it's not even still not people that he like or show any favoritism to him. It's like people just realize, there's nothing coming out of this administration but what is. And okay, let me ask you guys now, what did y'all think about when Trump spoke last night? What was that? Did y'all stay up to see it?
I did not. I did not have anything on. I didn't look.
Yeah,
I did not.
It was
until I looked at New York Times at 1:30, and then, like I said, became physically ill. And that was it for me. I refused. And it's interesting. And we'll let Tachi reply. But I feel like, and it's sort of what you were talking about, alluding to earlier, Tachi, is that we've gotten into an addictive relationship. That the media has become addicted to Trump, and those of us that care about the country have become addicted to the coverage, and that it just feeds and feeds and feeds. And because it's money, right? Because of the advertising and viewership, right? Eyes. And the same thing with social media. Your attention is money, right? Because there's money, there is no investment. There is no reason for, and the news is now part of the entertainment division of these big media companies, right? There's no incentive for them to do anything to make it less addictive, right? So we've got sort of in this addiction cycle, right? So that was why I personally, who worship NPR, I've been listening to NPR for, almost since it started when I was a little girl. I love NPR. I love New York Times. I was like, nope, they're not going to get my attention tonight, because it's not going to matter. So I can't comment on that, but I do think it's interesting. And Tachi, I want you to answer, if you don't mind, just then going into this idea of that there's like an addiction to it, right? And that we can't quit looking. And so who quit, do I quit looking? How do we quit looking? So anyway, I'll kick it to you, to Trump.
I did not watch either because I value my peace and health more than I value knowing about that. I just can't. This is, I don't think there's been a time in history where there has been an actual loathing of an individual. You may not like what the other side has to say, but there was never this, I can't. And really, for me, I'll just have to say, I can't. And anytime I hear the voice, I switch the TV, I mute it, I can't, because that voice is connected to so many things that are anti-me. So aside from looking at it as a journalist and looking at it impartially, I'm also a person. I'm a woman. I am Black. I am a child of immigrants and African. So that all is a recipe for what he does not like and what he has denigrated. So why would I then give you my time and my peace except to listen? And then I already know what he's going to say. I am the grand imperial king of the world and I have won. I already know that's what it's going to be. So there's no need for me to listen to speeches or anything else outside of that until I know definitively who has won. And then you decide how to proceed from there. So I can't speak on it except for the headlines that I saw in terms of that he's claimed victory already unjustly, because there's been, we're still missing so many returns from a few battleground states. So he's claimed victory, but is that surprising? So this is the thing. We know who he is. He has done this before. He always claims victory. He's the best. He's the most. This is what he does in his narcissistic way. So I don't understand people being surprised or not knowing that this was going to come. In fact, I think it was MSNBC. I did peer at their coverage a little bit as I was flipping. And who was it? Somebody said they predicted he was going to claim victory before victory. I mean, but it's not like a surprise because that's what he does. So I didn't listen.
When he spoke, when he came out last night, he started, of course, with the teleprompter. That was a little bit difficult for him in the process. But he seemed to be almost surprised at what this process was. You could tell he was ready for one of the journalists to say he was president again, and he didn't realize that hey, this is how this works. That these votes what do you mean these votes have to be counted? And he was kind of, I don't know if he was sleepy or if he was somber. And then he kind of started to trail off. And that's when I said that Pence had to step in, because it was not good. It was really not good.
Wow.
I expected him, like you, I expected him to come out and bolster, and rally his troops that were quote unquote standing by, and it really wasn't that, it just really wasn't. I missed the Biden one. I don't know whether because I don't know, but it was interesting. It was interesting to see that.
I have this question for Dr. Tachi for your expertise. Is to say what you're describing. You're a media expert, right?
Yeah.
Yet you're finding, much as myself, I can't stand his voice, or I can't even stand it, right? Can't stand his face, can't stand his voice. How do you moderate then? Staying informed, right? Because talk about our civic duty to stay informed with your, like I say, your peace of mind, your peace of your spirit, your health. How do you sort of keep an assessment and an eye on what's going on and stay informed, but not just go into the gutter with it, right? And suffer. I mean, really, we're this thought is like, well, if I don't, like, I didn't watch the debates, and I'm like, if I don't watch the debates, I feel like I didn't do my homework. But I'm like, the debates are a farce. There's no reason to see it, right? So how have you found, because you can't just be like, I'm never going to look, right? Because this is what you do, right? And even if you're talking other types of media, you can't not look at it, right? So how are you balancing that?
That is a great question. I think this is a good question for everyone, especially journalists who report on the White House or political journalists. I am not a political journalist, and this is why, because I know how much I can take, and this is not it, and then I'm done. I don't care. No stories will get done today. That's too bad. I'm done. So that's why I report on media, tech, and pop culture. But I'll report on politics as it relates to media in a little bit. So you've watched. I really don't do very much politics, and I don't like to polarize people, because I want everybody to be able to come to Mediascope and have fun, and regardless of whatever it is you believe. But for me, what I have to do is, I do have to pay attention. I think it is important to pay a little bit of attention, but I'm not going to sit there and leave the news channels on all night. There are some days where I just don't look. If there's nothing critical going on, no need for me to necessarily know. If there's a fire, somebody will surely come and tell me, or I'll find out somehow. Another way is because I also do a lot of social media strategy, and I run some social media accounts. Obviously, when you log on to Twitter, etc., you see the trending topics and you'll see what's happening. So if I see something that I feel I need to know, I'll click on it and read the article, and let that be it. What I don't do, this is another way to keep your peace. Do not read the damn comments underneath because they will have you leaping off the top of the Empire State Building and getting drawn into arguments with people who really don't have very much sense. There are some people who make a lot of sense, who have very great pointed arguments. I would hasten to say 85 to 95% of them are not well thought out, well crafted arguments. And that's because our educational system has come away from teaching critical thinking skills, and people think they can say whatever the hell they like. So don't read the comments. That's another way I feel at peace, because I don't read people's comments.
And I have to agree with that, because even not only will they have you leaping off a tall building, but at our age, just falling off the curb. You're walking with your phone and you read something, just a little bit of stumble can be dangerous. I grabbed, first of all, I'm scrolling. Kanye West concedes presidential run, looks to 2024. Just to let you know. But here's the interesting thing: when there is a little short, some little data that's out. What's interesting is the gain that Trump saw over this election, over last election. He lost white men by 4%. He, of course, gained 3% more white women. He gained 5% black women. Small ratio there, but there still was a gain. No, I'm sorry, 5% black men, 4% black women, 4% Latino men, 3% women, and then 6% others. So there was some gain there. Now, Biden posted that they posted just as long as they flipped some of the Trump states that they could possibly win, because we know that Hillary won the popular vote and the Democrat is going to win the popular vote. It really boils down to where Democrats live. It really boils down to that. And they knew going in, Democrats, they are stakeholders in their party. They really needed to flip. So I think Biden said 3 states, and they think that they think that they have done that. And that was basically as far as the electoral college is concerned. So Biden is really put out there. I mean, they're just gonna wait for these things to come in. It's a waiting game, and I feel like tension wise, the longer we wait, the longer we go into this process where every vote is counted. And one of the things I thought was interesting, they said the military votes aren't even expected until next week. And I was like, wow, it's just amazing how we used to handle this process. And now we're really seeing our full process works. And I just hope that people will maintain their patience and understand that this process. I'm always worried and concerned about first time voters. When things don't go their way, will they stay in the process? Particularly because you do have the runoffs, particularly because it's always election season. Because immediately when this is over, in 2 years, we're right back at this because the next set now, people have to understand this thing is divided in two. The next set of our representation has to then begin campaigning, and we need to, there's a lot that we need to pass the torch on and make sure that okay, we got a comment. So you haven't much of a population shift just yet. Yeah. I think that, and this is coming from Trey, who is on and listening, I think that has a lot to do with it. Because one of the things we have had is, the coming of age of the number of generations behind us, our millennials and our Gen Z. And when you think about in the next 4 years, and I think the next 4 years is going to be interesting because we know that reaching back to Biden and the Democrats, have they played all their cards? When we look at the field, how big this field was in the beginning, and that they all literally pretty much conceded to Joe Biden, thinking he was really what it was going to take to go up against. In looking at this and how things divide, and I literally woke up like wondering, a woman on the ballot, because I really, as much as we know about America and its deep history of racism, I literally wanted to wake up thinking that people were processing, for the larger part, people were processing something else. Were they processing? When you think that half is split right down the middle, are people processing? And this is Leading Women Weekly and Leading Women, a show about leading women. Are people processing a woman being on the ballot? When we look at Hillary, when we look at the fact that we could literally be in the hands of Kamala as vice president and pretty much to succeed, because we really haven't seen a vice president really get in the race and win in a while. We haven't seen that since Bush and Reagan, right? That it really carried on. It has changed hands after each one has done 2 terms. Clinton did 2 terms, then we went Republican. Republican did 2 terms, then we went back, Democrat with Obama. We didn't have Biden. They put Hillary in. So is America out there processing leading women? That women, are they ready for women to really run this country? What do you think about that? Do we need time on this, lady?
Well,
no.
They're not. You're saying they're not.
I'm with Tachi. I think that we still have a deep streak of misogyny, and but
do you think? But do you think that really going into the poll, that was really heavy on the minds of voters
about a woman being on the ticket? Yes, with Biden.
Trey is saying not yet, and I guess I'm going to be Trey's interpreter since he doesn't want to unmute.
Well,
he's saying not yet.
But I think
we have a leading man in the comments.
Well, let's talk about what was the rhetoric. What was the Republican rhetoric about Biden and Harris? Right, Biden has dementia, and Harris is going to take over, and you're going to have this black woman running the country. And I think I think that people were contemplating that as a vote against, right? Because I still think we have misogynoir. I really do think that is an issue. However, look at how we're doing on down ballot with women, and look at the squad. The whole squad got reelected, right?
Okay, he's
And
come out of the
here we go.
shadows, y'all.
And
Our
so-
leading man has come out of the shadows
Yay.
to
So
join
anyway,
us.
but let Tachi. So let now Tachi jump in.
Tati,
What your thought on that?
you were a quick no. Why were you a quick no?
I was a quick no because just the actions of what has happened. So it's all well and good when you're running for school board, when you're running for Congress, when you're running for to be a senator, a representative, when you're running for those types of things where the power and the fate of the country does not rest in your hands, that's all well and good. I still think, like Angela was saying, there's a huge amount of misogyny and especially misogynoir. That's a huge problem because Kamala made, and I'm just going to come out and say it, Kamala made two critical mistakes in their eyes. Number one, when she was a prosecutor in California, she put, quote, black men in jail, as if that was not her job to do, but she put black men in jail. And you don't go against black code. You're supposed to support black people and black men at all costs. You don't ask questions, you just support. Number two, she married someone who was non-black. In their eyes, that is the ultimate in disrespect. Now, I can't speak for all, and that's not all black men, certainly not, but those are two reasons that you have some black men that will like, well, I don't know about Kamala, because I was on a conversation before. And so they had all this to say about Kamala. They, of course, they weren't necessarily for Biden, but the crux of their arguments landed on Kamala. So I said, okay, well then who is your ticket? Kanye West and Tekashi 6ix9ine? Please tell me. Who are you voting for? So they're like, oh, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? Then you're useless. You are absolutely useless. You are not coming to the cookout again. You are out of the club. Black card revoked. We need you to be with us here. And to say, I don't know, that's a vote for the other side in my eyes. So misogynoir was a huge issue that we already expected misogyny from white men. I think not all white men, but the white men that are misogynistic, we expected that. And even if you don't think you are, you probably exhibit this because societally we accept it. But with someone who you think would be your own, because she was viewed as breaking black code, I think that was a big reason for them not supporting her.
Wow. Having to do with the gains that we talked about earlier that Trump has. All right, Trey, I'm going to let you expound on that. Then I want you to introduce yourself and let everybody know what you bring to the table as a leading man on Leading Women. Go right ahead.
Oh man, that was thank you also so much for allowing me to be here. No, so I thought I don't think I was very, very much so like Dr. Tachi was saying. I think it's interesting that we are in this place where, it's almost like, we'll only give so much power. But we still need more control. And so you do definitely see that misogyny kind of influence of where we believe that women can fit in leadership, right? This is their particular place. They can be here, they can be on school board. But when we talk about chair of the school board, like, hold on. So it's still very limited, and you can see if you start to watch, how people converse about who should be in this particular position, and if you listen, you're like, shouldn't that be a man right there, or shouldn't it be a woman? It's an interesting conversation. You kind of have to be quiet and hear what people are not saying. But I believe that's why I said that I don't think we're there yet, because there's still some. There's some tacit kind of thoughts of people, both women and men. That's not where we belong, or that's not where they belong. And I think that's why I gave you the no, not yet, just yet.
Yeah. I'm just wondering. That was my first thought waking up this morning. Understanding what media is saying, understanding what people are saying. I'm just really wondering, as a co-host on Leading Women, how much that weighed on whether people actually remained in support of Donald Trump and also switched in support of Donald Trump. Because what we have seen over the last, going back even to Barack, to John McCain, when he picked Sarah Palin, it's like it literally ended it's almost like the Hamilton, never gonna be president. Like you can literally, you're never gonna be friends. I love, sorry, I love that song, right? What's his name with Jefferson? I just love that. But we've seen it again and again. If you look back, what was it? Monday? What was it? I want to say Monday. Remember he picked a female vice president.
Ferraro, Geraldine
Ferraro.
Ferraro.
Yeah,
Yep.
we saw it then, and we didn't think we were in that time then. But if we keep saying not yet, if we keep saying not now, the question is when. Is Biden the last? Here's the question again, and Trey, I still want an introduction for you though, but is Biden like the last that the Democrats have to offer? Again, when we look at how crowded this field was, we've seen a Cory Booker. I think Cory Booker has played his dues. I think he made one critical mistake as far as, because we still look to the whole relationship, the whole full package, and so people were looking at, he was a single man, then he came, into the election with a relationship. But he's been asking the question, or people have been asking the question, has he paid his dues yet? And he did on the local level and made it all the way to representation. And yet and still it got down to, even Bernie, as much as he had to support Biden in this, and he was still saying, even though Biden's, opinions are not mine, and I would do it entirely different. He never really could say, hey, y'all run out and vote for Joe Biden. He did it, he said, okay, the party. Where are we? Because regardless if Biden gets in, regardless if Kamala is the vice president, where are we again in 4 years? Have the Democrats run out? What do they have?
I don't think they've run out. This is interesting because this race particularly, and some of the races leading up to this race, have really shown where the Democratic mind is, and that they are ready for something. If you just look at all the people that are prepping, who was the one, South Carolina, that was running against Lindsey Graham?
Jamie Harrison.
Jamie Harrison.
Yep.
He ran the cleanest, most honest campaign I have ever seen. It was about issues. It was, now, of course, I don't know him. I didn't follow every single thing, but he did what you are supposed to do when you're running for an office. That, and maybe he knew, all right, I'm not going to win this time against Lindsey Graham. I know, but I'm putting my foot in the door. I'm putting my cards on the table. I'm letting people see what I'm made of. And I think we're seeing that because even if we know, if the Democrats know that, okay, we know that we're not going to win this race, but we're going to make some headway because of what we did this time. Right. And honestly, I think Republicans know this and they see this.
Well, let's talk about that. And Trey, answer this, Angela. Well, who might the Republicans have in 4 years? What do they look like in 4 years besides Kanye?
God.
Then they're doomed.
Yeah. No. Well, they keep talking about Nikki Haley. There's a whole theory. There's a whole political theory that the way we get the way America gets a female president is a Republican female. Is that if the Republicans get comfortable with a woman. So that's interesting that they're talking about Nikki Haley potentially being on the ticket, at least as vice president, probably not as president. You've got all these little Republicans running around Ted Cruz, Rubio. They're all hoping they still have a chance.
I think they've shown.
Honestly, I hope. I want to go back to this thing about the Democratic ticket. My hope is that Biden is the last old white guy I see running as a Democrat, and hopefully as anybody. I believe old white men should be banned from running for office for the next 50 years, probably for the next 200, but at least for the next 50. If I can live the rest of my life and not see another old white guy on the ticket, but particularly for Democrats, and it goes back to what Tachi's saying. This, I will tell you, if Biden loses, then this is the evidence that the Democrats need to adopt the Republican strategy, which is go with the base. Don't say, how are we going to have this, pick one person that's going to broadly appeal. We should, instead of saying, as we did with Barack Obama, who has passion? Who do we have passion for in the base? Trump got elected on 30% of the Republicans. We could get people elected on 30%. And so I think that Biden is the end of an era. I think this is the end of an era that, because look at the depth of the Democratic bench. When we had all those candidates running, look at the diversity, look at the diversity of background, look at, talented men and women of every background who have so much to contribute. And I would rather that.
Like they couldn't do it though. Because people were begging Biden to get in to go up against.
And it's because there was this thought that he would sway Republican voters who were not going to be swayed. We can look at this and see the people who voted for Trump or who classically vote Republican weren't going to be swayed. Somebody sent me a thing and said, look, this is a religion. This is like trying to get somebody to change their religion, right? And it's like there is a generation from us up, right, that they just are going to vote Republican. They don't care, right? And it's and I'm gonna shout it out to Resma Menachem, who I am loving, and I am. If he starts something that he will let a white person into, I will do it. He's like, white people, go handle your business. But I appreciate his leadership, and he keeps saying it's going to take 9 generations to get rid of white supremacy, and I'm like, don't say that. But really what he's saying is it's the youth. We got to quit looking up, and we got to start looking at those that are young. And I think this Biden thing was old people thinking another old white guy will counter an old white guy. And that is not where we are in this country. This is not the demographic, right? If we look at the demographics of just the country, this is not the future of the country. And so this to me, I think will be the last one. And it's like, let's get somebody for whom there is passion, even if Republicans hate them. How much do we loathe Trump? How much do I loathe this man? And I try not to hate anybody. And how much can I not stand him? Right. But that doesn't mean that, it's like they didn't try to pick somebody that was going to sway me. Right. And guess what? I was not going to be swayed. I'm not going to vote for a Republican. I don't care who it is. I'm not going to vote for a Republican. And so I understand that that's your religion. Because I wouldn't have said that was my religion before, but I'm like, what this has done? No, right? So,
I want to always counter the old thought process, because it's not that Biden is because I'm just defending our generation because we're next.
He's not old.
It's not that he is old. When you say the old people, it's what they did in their youth. People were hearkening back to Biden because of what Biden did. Biden's generation of politics were in their youth. So when you talk about look instead of looking up and look down or look to the younger people, we're looking at each of these generations as to what they did in their youth, what they got accomplished in their youth. In Biden's generation, they literally became the lawmakers, took over politics from the generations prior to them. That's what we have not seen yet. And we had that talk last week with Felicia. Remember, we talked about Felicia, why don't you guys pass the torch? And she says, no, we're going to hold on to our torch because, and I got to thinking about the Olympics. You think about anybody that has carried a torch in the Olympics, they get to keep their torch. But it's the baton that needs passing. And when we begin to see, and we saw it in this election, of our millennials and the Gen Zs, of what they are doing in their youth. If you look at, the protests with George Floyd and the inroads that they are making as far as justice is concerned, that's something that and we got to encourage that, because that's something that they're going to carry with them throughout life and in everything they're going to do. They're going to always harken back to their moment in time. And so we all do that. Will these moments in time for each of these generations create leadership? And only on that level of leadership, I want to go to Trey, because that's what he does is assess where we are as far as leadership. When we look at our millennials, when we look at our Gen Z, have these moments in time, because they got their George Floyd. We had our Rodney King. But look what we did with it in becoming the lawmakers and riding the wave into DC and so forth. Have these moments created leadership in our young people that when we start looking at 2024 and we say no to Kanye, but is there somebody that we can put parallel to what Kanye could bring?
I think we have to think about it in a couple of different ways. I always say that, if you're going to cut something out, you're going to have to push it. You're going to have to push something else in. So it's always it's not we're not just dissecting and pulling. We always have to push something else, push something else in. It's like the best critique of the bad is the practice of the better, right? And this focus on for young people to, okay, you know what, we can do, we know how to do, I would say that lower realm of I would say the civic engagement continuum, so to speak, right? So this place where we know that we can create some agitation, get some disturbance, get the awareness out, get people really riled up, organize in a particular way, voice our particular voice those particular challenges, see if we can way of movement, all of those things. Where it gets stuck is actual policy, right? And so we can get into a place where we can, I think we do a great job. Millennials definitely have a great job of being able to move in a very emotional manner and move people around and create movements in that particular way. But sometimes if they're not educated on how policy works, one, how they can actually affect policy, how they can write policy, don't forget, with all these folks involved, then it kind of falls flat. And so you get stuck in this place where I'm almost, if I'm someone that I don't have, if I'm like the opposer to whatever's happening, I'm going to let you go protest because I know it's not going to affect my policy, right? I'm going to let you do all that and do the agitation because I know you're not going to run for office against me. Right? I know you can't even raise money against it. You have no policy objections because we also understand sometimes that agitation that's happening on the ground doesn't necessarily show up at the ballot, right? It doesn't, or if it does show up on the ballot, it's going to show up every 4 years, not every 2 years, right? So at a certain point, if I'm the other guy or the other lady, I'm kind of chilling. I can let you do all that stuff because I know it's not going to faze me. And so this place where I think where we need to be is really looking at how do we ensure that these episodic actions, these empathic flourishings that are happening across the country and across the world, how do you actually cultivate that into a leadership pipeline for people to freaking run for office? Stop with this idea of, and at the same time, because I've been in a lot of enough academies where I start to notice that there is a particular archetype, right? It's certain people that are in that I start to notice. They're like, we're basically super voters. We're pretty good in civics education. We kind of always been that way. We have pretty good jobs starting off. We can be politicals if we wanted to. Some of us are in certain, we're maybe titans in industry, some other places, right? But we don't necessarily go to those areas where when we talk about getting the vote out, those GOTV places, we don't really actually do a lot of work there of cultivating leadership politically there. And I find that to be a little bit troubling. So we start to get this same vein of folks that they think a certain way. They may not even have connection to those. Only time they actually probably go into those communities is when they need to do a GOTV, some GOT work. So that means, but this same group here are the folks that are out on, out protesting. They have the passion. They know they want change in a particular way. So it takes some really focused effort on looking at, okay, how do we deliberately go into our neighborhoods and actually say, hey, you too can run for office. Because they don't see it as a possibility. Right? It's just like a lot of things when we used to do the college tours because they want you to see it as a possibility first.
And we saw that in Ferguson. Remember when the Ferguson issue happened, the next thing was get on the ground. You guys have got to run. You've got to become the lawmakers in your city. And we saw a number of them roll that way. But Angela, I know that you have a hard stop. So what we're going to do, guys, we're right at an hour. So I don't know. I think we'll just continue to repeat ourselves. What I want to do is save some in case we get an announcement of a president and I have to call you guys back on and we go live a little bit later. But Trey slid in here. I do want you to just make a quick introduction and I'll say a few other things. Andrew, you can get your leading women words ready and then we'll just go ahead and stop and perhaps come back when we do get a thing. All right, Trey, tell everybody about this leadership stuff that you know so well about.
I don't know. I only know a little bit, and I just try to practice what I preach. So my name is Trey Detweiler. I run a small collective, we call the Service Nerd Collective and Think for Good. We are a leadership consultancy working all over the country, actually now globally, because of COVID. We're able to do a lot of things virtually. We're focusing on one, like I said, that civic engagement continuum, but also all those other areas of leadership, whether it be professionally, but also personally. So, one of our phrases is, no matter where you are, there you are. So, working on yourself, identifying who you are from a life and leadership perspective, and allowing you to really pursue what you say you want to truly pursue. I've been in this work for since 2012. I actually started in the nonprofit development space, working programs and projects and initiatives many years ago, and over these almost 20 years. And then I realized that I can build, projects, programs, and really initiatives don't really create change, only movements do. Mm-hmm. And so once I started thinking about that, I realized as I'm building these systems, we have to start working with the individual leaders as well. And so it's been a joy. And if anyone ever need to get in contact with me, you can just follow the hashtag Service Nerd, or find me at theservicenerd.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for jumping on there. Tati, thank you so much for always heeding our call. Don't forget, Tati, are you on tonight?
I am on tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern time on Periscope, Facebook Live, LinkedIn Live, and WJMSradio.com, Mediascope.
Y'all follow the hashtag Mediascope, and hopefully we don't get the breaking news during Mediascope. Or do you want, as a journalist, do you want to make the decision?
I really don't. No.
All right, guys, you've been watching another great episode of Leading Women Weekly, where Angela and I come together and we just tackle the issues. We do make them gender specific, but as you can see, we're always open for leading men to come on in here and join us. Let me just say, and for promotional purposes, guests of the Leading Women Weekly show will receive a gift card from, as you know,
right on. Nice.
Handmade Bath and Body Soaps from Dryer Bust. The new, this is the new hot chocolate bath. All right, so you got to check that out. That's a hot chocolate bath. This one is the new Patchouli Zen. So you guys will be receiving some of those. Just make sure I get your email in my inbox so that I can shoot you over your gift cards and you can shop right now. For those of you for the holiday season, please don't buy anybody soap. Do buy them a gift card so they can purchase their home soap at shopdryerbust.com. Awesome and amazing. It was my quarantine thing. And of course, we use it to build this show and other platforms and things like that we do and with Angela and I. So definitely, y'all, thank you so much for all the amazing support on that. Angela's got to run, but she's got some leading words of wisdom. And I'm going to hit this button and we can all say, we can all finish waiting for our president. Go, Angela.
Yeah, so our leading women words of wisdom is our hashtag for this season has been Leading Women Vote. And it's like, so it's not, my words of wisdom are not as slick as Leading Women Vote, but leading women stay engaged after the vote. And I think this is something that we have to remember, that as women and as citizens, that it's not just the casting of the vote. It's an ongoing process. We've had Trey talking about policy. We've got Tachi talking about engagement. It's like these things, we have to stay engaged. So leading women continue after the vote to stay engaged.
All right, y'all. Everybody wave as I hit the goodbye button. Don't forget to follow the hashtag Leading Women Weekly. Bye.
Bye.